We're back and we're moving into our second conversation for today. As we've said, we're trying to get you as much information as you need during this time to feel as prepared as possible. And we know that there's been a lot of concerns about Social Security and the benefits. Unfortunately, people have lost their job. Know, what are they going to do? So we have with us, of course, the chairman of the Social Security Board, Doug Singh, and we also have the general manager, Chandra Cansino. Good morning.
Good morning.
And thank you for being here.
Good morning.
Thank you for having us, Marlene.
So let's start off with the messages that you're trying to communicate to people right now. People who have lost their jobs and are wondering, well, what happens now? What do you say to them?
Well, first of all, Social Security, we have two important groups of persons that we need to take care of. And those are our customers, our stakeholders, and our staff. Because our staff are also very concerned about COVID-19 and, our exposure, considering the fact that we are dealing with persons that are ill that are coming into the offices. So we're trying to manage both at the same time. We meet pretty often, or we have been meeting pretty often since the announcement of the first positive case. So things are changing very fast. We met up until yesterday evening. So some of these updates that I'm about to give, probably the staff will be hearing of them for the first time. So we ask their indulgence, and we will be updating as soon as we can when the office opens. But going back to your original question, persons who have been, the Social Security covers workers. And so insurable employment is usually the first qualifying condition for a benefit, particularly the short-term benefits. And so if you are not employed, the coverage for social, that's the first criteria that will not be met in order for coverage. So that is an area that is on the table to be assessed and to be reviewed, and probably Mr. Singh will be sharing a little bit more on that. But for persons who are working and who may become ill with COVID-19, yes, that is an illness that is covered by Social Security sickness benefit. The qualifying conditions are the same as any other benefit. You need to be in insurable employment. You need to have 50 total paid contributions to qualify for any short-term benefit. And out of the 13 weeks prior to the first day of incapacity, you need to have 5 paid contributions. So those are things that have been with Social Security since 1981. Times are changing fast, things are changing fast, and so all of these things are on the table to be assessed at this time. In regards to the coverage, well, it's based on your insurable earnings, it's based on the contributions, it's pretty much the same. For COVID-19, the coverage, because of our legislation allows us to, the coverage extends to any quarantine or isolation period that is in relation to COVID-19. So if your doctor tells you, oh, Marlene, perhaps you may have been exposed to this disease, we want you to go into self-isolation, or we need to quarantine you, Social Security will cover that as part of your sickness benefit, but it needs to be certified by a medical practitioner at this time, because at this time, remember, the cases are few and far between. And so if it becomes the case, which we are praying it doesn't.
I can't just be scared and say, I'm going to self-isolate.
No.
I don't want to come to work anymore.
Yes.
I have to have a doctor be able to say that I need to self-isolate.
Yes, and I understand that the Ministry of Health does have letters that they issue to persons who they consider need to be in self-isolation. And so it's not something that the medical practitioners don't know about. So there is a letter. We're trying to work along with the ministry to ask them to ensure that they fill the proper form, the sickness benefit form, and so that is all changing as we speak as well.
So, and I want to come over to Doug for a while to talk about possibly the changes that will be made in the legislation. You've heard the concerns. It's been taken to the task force. Tell us where we are.
Well, just before that, I wanted to add one more thing with respect to the claim forms for people who have to go into isolation or quarantine. We had an incident, I think it was yesterday or day before yesterday, where I think 3 or 4 people came into the Belize City office personally with quarantine forms, and it created a situation, as you might imagine, where it really put the staff in a set of circumstances. What do we do? And what we're doing is putting in place some procedures for this, where we will have a drop box We've already put in place where you don't have to walk into the office to initiate that claim at that point in time. Normally, you had to put your claim in with a certain amount of days after the illness.
Yes.
We've extended that time and left it relatively open, and this is to protect everyone.
Yeah.
People who are waiting in lines, our front-end staff who are there. And so we're going to put a drop box so that those things can be deposited there, and they're going to be dealt with by somebody who can handle it appropriately and process the claim and get in touch with the individual. So we
I
have
was
to
going
look
to
at
ask, how do I know it's been processed? I never thought of
Right.
that. You're right. You do have to take in your own claim
Right.
paper.
And it created a set of circumstances that unnerved our staff.
Yeah.
At Social Security, we are putting in protective measures.
Yeah.
On all the frontline areas, we're installing protective
Physical
glass.
barriers.
Because Social Security is an essential service. Our staff must go to work. If they don't get paid. And we have to, as the board of directors, we have to be very, very sensitive to this. Know that they're very concerned. They're concerned about their families and the fact that they could contribute to a major problem at home.
Yeah.
And it's something that we have to be absolutely conscious of and do everything we can to protect our frontline workers. So we're putting a number of procedures in place to ensure that it minimizes the contact, and we can do as much as possible online to
Yeah.
protect everyone in the process of doing so.
So just to reiterate what the chairman says, that effective immediately, all sickness benefit claims must be deposited in our drop boxes.
Okay. Don't come into
you
the
don't
office.
come into the office, just put them in the drop boxes. When they're reviewed, if there's something missing, make sure your contact information, your
Yeah.
number is there. We will be contacting you. We will have, if we need to bring extra people on board to make sure that the contact is being made and the information is being filled,
Yeah.
we will be doing that. And as he said as well, the period for lateness is being waived indefinitely. So there is no penalty for submitting a late claim at this time until further notice. These things will be formalized later today.
So you don't have to wait, you don't have to rush over to Social
Absolutely.
Security
No.
2 days
No.
to get that claim form in.
No.
And as you said, it's all sickness claims, not just a suspected
At
case.
this time,
Correct.
it's all sickness claims.
And your
there-
claim forms are available online?
Yes, they are.
Okay, because then you don't have to go to the office to get it from HR or to Social Security.
And we're also putting in place, one of the number one reasons why we have people lining up in the office is to do registration and also to renew their cards.
Yes.
So what we're doing is we're suspending registration because that's not an urgent issue, and I think we have to prioritize right now.
Yeah.
And so we're going to suspend the services for registration unless it's urgent.
Yeah.
And there are very rare circumstances that should occur. And secondly, for the renewal of cards, it's really, most people renew their cards because maybe they go to the banks
Yeah.
and there's an expiration date and they want a valid ID. We're asking these institutions to be patient with us at this point in time. Use that form of identification for the individuals, or use another, maybe their passport or something
Yeah.
else, and allow them to be able to do their business at this critical time, just to minimize the need for someone to come into the office just for the purposes of renewing a card. It makes them vulnerable to do that, and if something is wrong with them, it puts everybody else at risk.
Now, asking the bank to do it is one thing, but allowing them to do it is another, because they do have regulations that they have. And a lot of people are going in for loans right now. And if they are required to have a Social Security card and it's outdated, I mean, how do you navigate that problem?
Well, maybe something else can be done, and we'll discuss this at the
Yeah.
at the CO level or with the senior management group.
Yeah.
Maybe we can put a separate booth where it can be processed
Yeah.
a bit different, where the applications can be accepted. And we do one-day processing with cards now,
Yeah.
so it's relatively quickly.
Okay.
Or maybe we can figure out an online way that we can actually verify that is that person who's applying for the card, because
Okay.
we wouldn't want the cards to go into the wrong hands.
Okay.
Coming back to your questions, there are a number of initiatives that we're doing now to try to make things better
Yeah.
for individuals. Primary among them is the concern that employers and employees had, that if I'm not employed, if as a result of unintentional unemployment as a result of COVID-19, I don't have 13 consecutive, I have not worked last week and I get sick this week.
Yeah.
Or I've not worked for 2 weeks as a result of being laid off or having to suspend my employment because I'm in the tourism business, for example, as a waiter, whatever it might be. What does that mean for me if I get ill with COVID-19? Well, what we're doing is we're proposing an amendment, a statutory instrument amendment to the Act that essentially says that if you become ill as a result of COVID-19 and your employment was suspended or you become unemployed as a result of this, it will be treated as if you were continuously employed up to that point in time. Okay. So the language is being worked out. So but the message that we're trying to send to the public is don't be concerned, and employers, don't be concerned about that. Yeah. Because these are unusual circumstances. Yeah. People expect Social Security to be there at the time of desperate need. And I think as difficult as it would be for the fund, we will deal with that down the road. It is our obligation at this point in time to provide services to people who become ill with some life-threatening illness.
So let me be sure that I'm understanding you clearly. What you're saying is, even if I've been laid off last week, for whatever reason, downsizing, or if I work in the tourism industry, I am still insured if I get sick.
You will still be covered under, exactly, as a result of that. Guidelines will be put in place, but the guidelines are not to disadvantage anyone. It's to eliminate any possibility of fraud as much as possible. But so there will be verification, and Social Security has these records. Because if an employer was continuously filing it, in circumstances where employers were not making contribution, we will have to evaluate those. It will take a little bit more time to process those. But as long as we were receiving contributions, we will know that you were employed as a waiter, as a food and beverage manager, whatever it might be, at a hotel or a tour guide or whatever it might be. And we will be able to process those for you, and we will treat it as if you were continuously employed, and not and set aside that section of the regulations and ask government to put it aside in place so that we're not breaking the law.
And this is only temporary. This is in the time of the pandemic.
Correct. It's specifically pandemic related.
Okay. Yes. And do I need to do anything? Do I need to come into the Social Security office and say, well, you know, I was unemployed, I just want to ensure that you know, so I can stay covered? No.
The coverage will be, the review of that will kick in when a claim is made. And so we wouldn't want anybody to come, or a mass of people coming in.
And we are working closely with the Ministry of Labor and the Chamber of Commerce. So information is being shared in relation to things just as that, you know, a list of persons who have been terminated, whether it's temporarily or not, who have been, and so we do have access to that information among each other, so it shouldn't be too difficult for us to navigate.
Okay, so that's one of the major issues. I mean, you've heard the cries.
That's
one of the suggestions that was also made was, and I know the chamber had been talking about it, I heard other people mention it as well, was that employers should try to at least keep their workers for a minimum of 8 hours so that they can still qualify for the benefits?
That's pretty much to address the same issue that the chairman was discussing just now.
We realize that this could become an economic burden on employers. While it provides a benefit to employees and some cash, some income, we would still want to encourage that, because I think anything an employer can do to look after the welfare of their employees, especially those that they value so much and want to return to work, that would be encouraged. I know a lot of companies are electing to pay 20%, put employees who are off on 20% salary, and so on, for as long as they can possibly do it. We'd want to still encourage that, but that's not possible in all circumstances.
Absolutely.
And we want to ensure that employees don't, that additional stress at this time becomes unnecessary.
And the third change that we've made is the ability to email your claim. So you are now allowed to send us an image of your medical certificate with your information completed by email, and we would be processing the claims from the offices based on the image that you send. So it would need to have the medical certificate. Well, the claim form, if you're familiar with it, is one document. And so you need your information or my information and the medical information. And once you email the claim to us, then we would pick it up from there and make sure we get the information from the employer on your behalf. And so we have a new email address set up for those persons who want to submit. And like I said, all of this is happening literally in the past few days, and so we will be publicizing this a little bit more. But the email address is claims@socialsecurity.org.bz, And that is the address you can use if you want to email your claims, your sickness claims to us as well.
And is that like accessible on the Social Security website already, or?
It probably is not on the social. The address was just created yesterday by the IT department, who are as well. The staff is really working very, very hard and giving a lot of extra hours to try to ensure these facilities are being addressed. So I don't think it's on the website yet, but it should be by the end of today.
Social Security has been moving for some time now under our Peranza program to go as much electronic.
Yeah.
And we have benefits now. We've moved all benefits payment to online payment, where they're direct deposit to bank accounts, or we've been working with banks where the individual get a debit card if they don't have a bank account that we can fund. And we're going to continue doing this. So the entire operation should operate around a system where it minimizes the need for people to leave their homes and to come into the office and to interact with other people that could put them further at risk.
Now, I remember when you had that launch of your online services, and did you have enough uptake? Because even employers could have paid their contributions through your online portal.
Yes.
If they haven't done so, I'd imagine now is the time to get it done.
Yes. Well, the response to that was fairly good.
Yeah.
I think we passed 60%. However, we do have a lot of employers who have not signed on to it. And so what the branch offices are doing at this time is asking their inspectors now to reach out to those employers and encourage them to sign on to the portal now, so that they can also be paying online and having no need to come to the offices as well. Because remember, the more people that are at the offices, the more we are not abiding by the isolation, the social distancing rules.
Yeah.
At this time, we are only allowing 5 persons in the office at a time.
Okay.
And so that was down from 10. So if you don't have to go to the office, mind you, the ones that are not allowed inside we have them housed outside under shelter. We have
With
seating.
6 feet?
We have the spacing, yes. As I think we had pictures of the Belmopan branch offices have their seating well with the distance that is required. I think they have 3 feet. I'm not sure. And so, but again, if we are providing these facilities for you to use, so that you don't have to go to the office, because we have to play our role in both, number one, protecting the staff, and number two, following the rules, keeping business open and following the rules of social distancing that the ministry has been asking us to do.
Now let's talk about pensions, because that's a high-risk group that really needs to not move at all. What's happening in terms of protection there, or changes to accommodate them?
Well,
Go ahead.
okay. I haven't seen the chairman in a while, so I'm not sure what he knows and what I know. The pensioners, we moved to direct deposit probably just in time for something like this. So all pensioners' payments are made by direct deposit. So they do not need to come to the offices. In regards to down the road when they have to sign that P6 form, more than likely that will be facilitated electronically as well. So they do not need to be coming to the offices.
Well, there is thought given to that, because you have to come in and still show you're alive when you, but not everybody is electronically savvy. And
right.
That's the population that you're working with.
Yes, yes. So that is a work in progress, because that whole process has to be facilitated along with the Peranza online program, because eventually everything will be done, or should be able to be done online, and that would include the life declaration form, signing it.
One of the recommendations we're making also, and this is going to be news to some of the SSB employees, or most or all, SSB has in the past, when it came to hurricanes and so on, have done an advance payment to pensioners. Because at times like these, when people have to stock up on groceries and have extraordinary expenses, it comes in handy. And we're recommending that we do an advance payment. It's not an additional payment, but just paying 1 month in advance, and we can adjust thereafter by reducing their future pension payments for the next 12 months, maybe by 1/12. We haven't worked out the detailed mechanics, but we certainly want to see how we can ease the burden on pensioners who are already living on limited income. And so that's
and
one
are
of
a
the things.
high-risk population, so we don't want
They
them.
need medication to stock up on medication. So we're proposing that we do 1 month advance payment to pensioners.
Okay. Now, let's talk about the money aspect. We don't know. No one can say right now how long we'll be under this current situation. You're looking at sick claims or the benefits. You're looking at pensioners. How sustainable is the Social Security Fund itself at this time?
Well, the fund is always vulnerable to such circumstances like this. Just to give you an example, 2017, I think it was, when we had a pink eye issue, there were about 59,000 days of illness, and that materialized to $1.8 million that we paid out in that 1 year for pink eye.
Yeah.
Imagine what COVID-19 can do. So we understand that the fund is vulnerable under these circumstances. But ultimately, that's what it is. If we can't take care of people now to preserve money and have loss of lives, when perhaps some of it could have been avoidable, then I don't think we serve a purpose. And we have to go back to original mission and vision as to where we want to be and what we're supposed to be doing and what the public expectations are. We're not unemployment insurance. We're sickness benefit insurance. This certainly qualifies under sickness benefit. So yes, pandemics can devastate funds, but we'll have to deal with that set of circumstances after we've recovered from the pandemic. But I think we need to be there when people need us the most.
Yeah. And what about employers? Some businesses are struggling, and some are really trying to hold on to their employees as long as possible. Some are doing vacation with no leave, just suspending service.
Well,
What about their sustainability to be able to contribute?
Okay, two proposals that we've also made in our meeting yesterday, which we will flesh out and give more detail tomorrow at the press conference, so you're getting a sneak preview on it, is to allow employers, at least for the next 2 months, to file their returns, but not the need to actually make the contribution. And then we can deal with, and also during that period when penalties and interest would normally occur, to have those penalty and interest waived. Only the Minister of Finance can approve that. So we're trying to put the mechanism in place where there's some kind, legally there's some form of a blanket approval that for people during that period who filed the return but did not make a payment, because we want to allow them to retain whatever that dollar amount is to help them to do what they need to do during this period. So it's the best we can do at Social Security relative to that. You must file the return. You don't have to make the payment for at least 2 months. If this situation continues, we'll review it and see how that can be extended. But we're working out the fine details. That's one part of it. The second part of it is we want to look at some form of a facility to help recovery. And this, of course, will have to kick in afterwards, because the stress and the financial strain that businesses, in particular small businesses, will go through this time when you're receiving virtually zero revenues and you still have expenses that you have to deal with. What do? So we are going to sit down as a board, as an investment committee, and see what we can devise so that there is some facility that companies can reach into. We'll have to assess what the greatest needs are, how we can manage those things, so we can provide recovery. This is important all the way around, not just for the sake of the businesses, but businesses employ people who are our clients, our constituents, our contributors, and if we don't help them to get back on their feet, then they can't help the employees to get back on their feet. And it has a domino effect that affects the whole system.
The proposition that's being made to potentially offer relief to employers to not pay their contribution. They'll file, so you still know who's working,
Correct.
that they're there. Is that a relief for the employer, or is it for the employee to take home full salary?
It's for the employer, because generally the employer would deduct that portion of the employee contribution, and then the employer adds their contribution along. So in a way, they get to retain that small portion from the employee and the portion from the employer, which could be material. It could be thousands of dollars that may help them during the process, and then we work out those details afterwards.
Okay. So we're looking at several things. We're looking at a complete shift in just how you're processing your claims at this time, from the drop-off box to the submission of claims through email, which people are already asking us for the email address. And you're also looking at being able to possibly have a advanced pension payment and some relief for employers for the contributions.
We're all trying to do our part.
Yeah, well, like I said, it's unknown territory for everyone. It's just figuring out what we can do in the best interest of all at this time.
Well, no, just to say, and people are concerned, they're anxious, they're worried,
Yeah.
they're desperate, and you know, what they change, what we haven't been doing, which you can't necessarily do in a time like this, is managing the change.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to keep abreast with all the changes, and we're trying to keep persons informed. So we just ask them to do their part by trying to stay engaged as well. All the changes that we make will be posted on our social media page, and so they can give it a little check whenever they have a little opportunity to do so. We'll try to continue with these sessions. Maybe in the future we'll have to be calling in instead of coming in. And so
We can
just
do video calls.
we just want people to do their part to stay informed, because we're everybody is there's an overload of information out there right now. And so just ask them to work with us and try to keep abreast.
And you said what you said is extremely important. We want to make sure it's not misinformation, because too much of that is already occurring. The fear, the stress that people are going through, we need to do our part to help to alleviate that. So we have to provide the information so people know what to do and how to do it, and in fact where the benefits lie, if they can benefit from it. But we also have to look after our staff, because our staff are on the front line and they're extremely stressed at this point in time. So we have to do what we can to alleviate that. Besides, the responsibilities are going to get a little bit more so. You may have heard the Prime Minister mention yesterday that Social Security will be asked to assist in the support, in the financial support that's going to be given to people who have lost employment and have absolutely no money to function on during this terrible time. So the mechanism with the czars, as I understand they're called, there will be a process where these individuals will be identified. SSB will assist in the identification of these individuals, and because we do have the record of who were employed at that point in time, to eliminate anything that is done that is unorthodox. I suppose that that program will also assist people who are self-employed, because like some tour operators and so on and so forth. And BTB will assist with identifying who these people are when claims are made and for claims to be approved. But there has to be a mechanism to disperse these funds. Social Security is countrywide, and so we're going to put our resources in place to do that. And we're going to use the same form of mechanism that we do to fund pensions and other benefit payments to minimize people needing to come in. So we will collect bank information. There will be direct deposit into bank accounts. So that also minimizes, well, what I'm saying now might be new to our staff, and they're going like, oh my God, more people coming in. No. The idea is to use the same systems that we currently have employed, so that it is a back office type of function, that once the claims come in and it is certified and approved, all we're doing is making disbursements on behalf of the government. So the government will make a lump sum payment to the SSB, and the SSB will disburse these funds on approval to all the people who qualify through whatever mechanism is done.
They'll make the qualifications. They'll outline the qualifications.
Right. Social Security is not qualifying, certifying, or doing any of the approvals for anyone. All we're doing is facilitating the payment. And we'll do it via, we've talked to the banks, so the banks will facilitate debit cards for those people who probably don't have banking facilities at this time. We may even go as far, consider, as long as it's approved by the people making the decision, that you could assist by, if someone doesn't have a bank account, to their sisters, their brothers, their husbands, just so that the funds can get to them, and we don't have these barriers where individual absolutely can't get the support that they need. But we're going to be a facilitator merely for payment processing. And we're pleased to be able to do what we can, but once again, it's additional stress on our staff, and we want to assure them that this is, to a great extent, a backline type of service, not a frontline.
So, and that's a crucial part of the message that I'm hearing from you. That you're really asking people, don't come to the office.
Yes, we are.
One, because we're supposed to stay home as much as possible. And we have the benefit of technology. We can go online. You're very active with your Facebook page, I believe.
Yes.
To send messages there. They can
Social
call
Security
the
Board
different
Belize.
offices, and you have a website where
Yes.
people can.
And we're also have very active messenger communication.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll soon have to hire somebody else to help us
Probably.
answering those questions, because they come in literally all day long.
Yeah.
And I want to say
It's the
thank
new
you
hotline
to
for
the-
people now,
Yes,
yeah.
to our staff, who's really been doing a great job in responding.
Yeah.
And so we have that. So we have the online facility and the social media facility, and of course the social media is the more popular one at this time.
All right. And so, you know, the claims email is a critical one. I think people need to know that. You also have people who are approaching maternity leave. Unfortunately, people are losing loved ones at this time too. You're looking at funeral
Funeral
benefits. These are all things that will be able to be submitted through your email.
Yes.
All right, great. And the forms are all downloadable from the website itself.
Yes, they are.
And of course, you can use the same pages to keep updated as these, new processes are instituted, and as we are seeing day by day changes
Yes.
in relation to this particular. So you can use the Facebook page and all of that to keep updated as well.
Yes.
What's your message to people right now? I mean, people are worried, especially if they've lost their jobs, if they may lose their jobs.
The message that from a Social Security
Yes.
standpoint is, we're going to be there for you. It's whatever we can do as the law provides for and the benefits under the program, we'll be there for you. We're an essential service. So we shouldn't add an additional layer of insecurity and discomfort for anyone to say, what if I get ill under these circumstances? We're there for you.
Yeah.
And to the extent that the law provides us to be, and we've gone even further, we're recommending SI changes to be able to be there even more than the law provides for at this point in time, to the extent that we can.
All right. Well, thank you for coming in and providing this clarification for all our viewers.
Okay.
We
and just a
appreciate it.
Quick reminder: all sickness benefit claims submitted by the Dropbox as effective today. We have available the email address for sickness benefit claims as well, claims@socialsecurity.org.bz. And I had to write down because as I said, these things are happening. Please, there might be some delays since we will be getting claims via the Dropbox. We will be contacting you to get your additional information.
Make sure
Please
you write your
work with
contact
us.
information.
Make sure your number is correct, your email is correct, and those are basically most of the updates that we have for today.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you
Thank
for
you
having
for
us.
having us.
We're going to go ahead and take a break. When we come back, we have a pharmacist coming in. They're going to talk to us about medications that you should have at home as you face, whether it's time working at home or isolation. We'll get all the details after the break. Stay tuned.